Hello, resin fans. I thought today I would do a video for those who may be in the early stages of resin art or just getting started. So what I'm going to do today is go through equipment and things that you want to have on your workstation, handy at arm's length, and things that I like to use that are helpful to me to make it as easy as I can and work the best to make my project go smoothly. So obviously the first thing you're going to need when you're going to start an art project with resin is resin. And I am a fan, proponent, shout it from the rooftops for ProGlas 1000 clear coat resin. I buy this in the 2-gallon kits because I am an artist. I am in 5 stores, plus I do commission work. So I do use a lot of resin. What that means is I've tried a lot of resin, and there are good resins out there, but for my money, this is the best. It has a long work time. It stays crystal clear. I haven't found it to yellow over time like other resins do. It dries rock hard. This is what drew it to me, because I was doing trays and I found that trays were bendy and not curing completely. When they were cured, they still had some bend to them. I did research, and this ProGlas 1000 was the #1 choice for dries hard, and that to me was very important at the time. I've come to love it for a whole lot of other reasons since then. This to me is the best, and I buy it through fiberglasswarehouse.com. So I suggest you give it a try. Now, when I'm getting ready to mix my resin, I do take the part A, which is the resin, and I'll put about 2 ounces of water in a Dollar Tree mixing cup, and then I put my whatever I'm pouring my resin in. I sit that in the water for a minute or two. If I'm mixing a large batch, I just sit one inside the other and let that part A warm up for a couple of minutes, and then put in the part B, and I continue to let it sit in the warm water bath while I stir for 2 minutes. And then I take it out of the water bath and I scrape the sides really, really good and continue to stir for 3.5 minutes. My first tip, whatever your resin instructions say for stir time, add 30 seconds to it, just so that you know you've got everything stirred up. And stir, scrape the sides frequently and thoroughly. And here's why. When you stir your resin, you're getting everything mixed in the middle, but everything on the sides you want to scrape so they get mixed in, and scrape the bottom. And here's why. When you've got your resin fully mixed, what are you going to do? You're going to pour everything out, and then you're going to go along the side to get every bit of the resin, because we never leave any resin in the cup. And if you don't scrape, then you're grabbing resin that has not been thoroughly mixed and putting it in your project. And every time your project will have soft spots, it'll be tacky, or it won't cure completely. So scrape the sides often, stir for the whole mix time that your resin recommends, and then add 30 seconds to it. All right, so now let's talk about what we stir in. I like to use for big projects, and this is a 32-ounce cup. I like to use these pliable plastic containers, and I've got these for the smaller projects. I like to go by ounces, not millimeters, so I always buy cups that have ounces on them. But when they're pliable like this, set your cup aside for 24 hours and go back and give it a squeeze, and all the resin that's left over, you can just lift it out, and you've got a clean cup to start with the next time. So we're not throwing away plastic or recycling plastic unnecessarily. You can use these cups again and again and again. Or you can get silicone cups, and I have a number of these. Actually, I've got these in different sizes as well. These are even better because at the end of the 24 hours, they do the same thing. You just mush them and lift it out. But if anything's stuck in there, you can just turn it inside out and scrape it off or wash it or however you want to get it out. So those are great ways to mix. When I pour, if I'm, sorry, I thought I had all my supplies on the table and I don't. I do like to use disposable cups in various sizes. I have them in sizes 3 ounces to 9 ounces. But when I want a controlled pour, meaning I'm going to be pouring close to an edge, or I want to be very specific about where I put my resin, I'll use the paper cups because I can squeeze them and make a very little opening and be very intentional about how and where I pour. And so the paper cups are good to have on hand as well. What you're going to stir with, I have various sizes of the silicone stir sticks that are wonderful. I also use Popsicle Sticks. I like to use these for measuring out mica powder. If I'm doing very small amounts, sometimes I'll just mix up 1 or 2 ounces, and these are good for scraping out of small cups. These are a little thicker, so I don't know if you can see that as well, but it's hard to get in the corners of a cup with a silicone stick, but the Popsicle Sticks obviously can get in there and get after it really well. What's next? When you are going to place your project, you never want it to lay flat on a surface. You always want to elevate it. So I use these little 2-ounce cups that I get at the Dollar Tree to place them under my project so that it sits level and keeps it up off of whatever I'm pouring on. If I'm pouring on a table, I'm going to have either parchment paper, or I like to buy plastic shower curtain liners from the Dollar Tree and place those on my surface. I buy the freezer paper, 150 square feet at a time, and mostly use that because I produce such large quantity and I make such large batches at a time. I'm going to swing you around here. So this is a baker's rack that I bought with the trays. And what I do is I line them with the parchment paper and then put my projects on them and set them up on the cups so that it's up off of the paper. And when I'm done, all of the drips are on the parchment paper, and I can either peel that off and reuse the paper or just throw it away and start again. So I work on the trays mostly, but most people don't have this, so I recommend you get, like I said, shower curtain liners or parchment paper to lay down and do your thing. The other thing you can get are these silicone mats if you're doing small projects, and you can buy these. I've got them all over my workstation here, and you can see how used they are. They've got dried resin all over them, and once in a while I'll just go through and pick all that dried resin off, and we'll be good to go. So that gets your project up off of the whatever your surface is, so that once it's cured, you don't have it adhered to your surface. I use usually 1.5 to 2 inch wide tape to tape off the back of projects like wood boards. I find the wider tape is easy. I don't have to use as many tiny pieces. I'll just do one big wide piece to cover my area. And once that's done, you just use your heat gun to heat up that resin just a bit and then pull that tape off, and it comes off nice, and you can just use a sanding block to smooth those edges. So that's easy. You always want to have tape on hand for wood projects. A level, I always keep a level on my workstation, and I'll lay it out on my whatever I'm working on. It's usually the wood boards I lay it on. If not, then I'll just put the level down on the surface that I'm working on to make sure it's level. And if it's not, stir sticks, the popsicle sticks are great to use as shims to even out, because nothing is more frustrating than to have a perfectly poured project and come back a couple hours later and see that it's all slid off to one side. And resin walks. It's liquid. Liquid always seeks its own level. So if your project isn't level, it's not going to be what it was when you poured it if you come back and check later. I mentioned that I use these little cups as risers. You can also get the actual artist's risers if you've got something that you need to lift up that's got a smaller surface. I do a lot of wood cutouts, mermaids and octopus and such, and maybe if I use this, what I'm laying on it is thinner than this, then this is going to be adhered to the piece. So these with the tiny points are also good to have. And most of this stuff I get on Amazon. Some of it I get at the craft stores. Just do a little research and you'll be good to go. Some things that I'm never without on my workstation are paper towels, the single select size, folded in half. These are perfect when I'm stirring to set my cup on, because I'm gonna always have drips while I'm working. When I'm measuring and stirring and laying my stir sticks down, I lay it on the paper towel. The paper towel catches everything, and then I can just throw it away. Additionally, I will just grab another one and wipe off my stir stick. I get the edges really good so that this is now reusable immediately for another project. And I do it with the silicone, and I do it with the popsicle sticks until I'm ready for a new one. But these are a blessing. Here's the other thing that these are good for. When you have got your cups sitting here right beside your project, I'm left-handed, so it's over here to the left. This is another thing you don't want to be without on your workstation, are toothpicks, because invariably you are going to have dust land, some kind of a dust particle land in your resin project, and these toothpicks go in and scoop it out, and you're going to have resin on your toothpick, and I just go over and twist the toothpick on the paper towel to clean it. Then I'm ready to go back in and get any other dust that's settled there. Another thing is, you are sooner or later going to get resin on your hands. I never ever work with resin without gloves, and I just said never ever, but occasionally if I'm working with a piece of glass and I don't want to risk getting resin that might be on my glove on the glass, I'll take my glove off to move it or do something with it, or reaching and grazing the top of a cup that's got resin on it. Sooner or later, you're going to get some resin on your skin. I keep a spray bottle of alcohol. This is 91% isopropyl alcohol, and I keep this in large containers and just fill up this little container. I keep this on my desk so that I can spray it on my hands and clean it away. Soap and water will get a lot of the resin off, but there's going to be that tacky base that's left on your skin, and the 91% isopropyl alcohol is a great way to get that off. So I always have this handy. It's great for cleanups. It's also great for if you've got a glass project. I think you may have seen all my windows over there in the corner. I do a lot of ocean scene windows, and this is great for cleaning the glass before I get started. So you always want to have this. The second thing I have is a small mister. It's a mini mister, and when I'm working with a mold, I like to not use a heat gun or a torch in the mold, because this can make the resin stick to the mold, so that when you pull it out, you're pulling pieces of the mold with your project. And I've thrown away more than one of these for that reason. So I learned that if I just give this a quick spritz of the isopropyl alcohol, it will pop the bubbles and it does nothing to harm the mold. So this I always keep close, and I just have a little syringe that I put in here and fill up and fill this, and it's quick and easy, no muss, no fuss. So those are some good tips for that. Safety, obviously, never work without the gloves, never work without the respirator. I change the filters out according to the manufacturer's directions. I usually do it a little sooner because I pour so much resin and I have so much resin where I work that I just want to be sure that I keep this safe. So, and I always have a fan on. I live in Florida, so extreme heat is my enemy and humidity is my enemy. So there's very few times during the year where I can actually throw the windows open, because the optimum temperature for working with resin is 70 to 75 degrees, and of course low humidity, neither of which happen where I live very often. But I do keep a fan on, and after the project is poured and is starting to cure, and that rack back there has got I'll just show you. I bought the cover for it. So I close that down, and my project is protected from dust. But I don't mind opening the windows once things are on the tray and the zipper is down to keep some of that humidity out. Then I'll open the windows with the fan and get some of the resin smell out. So that was something I forgot to mention a minute ago. When you're laying out your project, you want to have a box, a plastic tub, some kind of a container. I have seen people take PVC pipe and measure out what their project is, if it's a large project, and tape heavy plastic around it, but just something to cover your project once it's complete so that dust doesn't settle on it, because whatever degree of wonderful housekeeper you are, dust is going to settle. Entropy happens, as my daughter used to say. So yeah, let's see what's next. Safety. Oh, clothing. This is, as you can see, a pretty messy. I feel like I'm a judge in my black robe, but it's just a hairdresser's smock, a snap up the front. So I have a lot of old clothes that I wear when I'm pouring resin. Maybe you're neat as can be and you never get anything on your clothes. I'm wearing whatever I'm working. If I'm painting a wall, I'm the same color as the wall. Same thing with resin. Resin is going to get on my clothes. And so I roll the sleeves up so my sleeves don't drag through. But I wear the smock often, keep some old clothes on hand just in case you have an accident. And you may want to put down whatever whatever size project you're working on, you may want to put down a shower curtain liner on your floor in case something spills off on the floor. My craft room is a guest room. Well, it used to be a guest room. That's a mattress standing up right there. That's the only thing left that indicates a guest room, other than the dresser over here. And the dresser is actually full of my line of greeting cards that I create. So guests at our house get the couch, because this room is now my art studio. And I'm working on getting an art studio. So anyway, but keep old clothes on hand. Let's see. When you are working with a mold, as I said, use the alcohol to pop the bubbles. You're always going to have bubbles. And if you stir slowly and don't whip or beat the resin when you're mixing it, you're going to cut down on the bubbles. But regardless, you're going to have bubbles. Heating that resin first also cuts down on the bubbles. But in order to pop those bubbles, you can use a torch or you can use a heat gun. A heat gun, when you're popping the bubbles, is going to move your resin. So if you've got it where you want it to be in a particular way, the heat gun isn't as effective as the torch. And the torch, you never want to leave it sitting on the resin for very long. You want to keep it moving constantly. You can go back to the same spot again and again, but keep it moving. In other words, don't let it sit in one spot. You can circle all around and come back to that spot several times to pop the bubbles, but never leave the resin, because you're going to set it on fire or you're going to scorch it. You'll start to see smoke, and you know to get that torch away. So these are readily available everywhere. The butane is easily obtainable, so a torch is always handy to have. And then when I'm working with wood pieces, or I'm working with, glass or any kind of a solid non-silicone, I always use the torch, because it really gets after the bubbles expediently, and it doesn't move my resin around if I've got the perfect pour and the perfect look that I want. So that's a great tip. When you are using, I'm just looking around to make sure I've covered everything. When you are using mica powder, you don't have to be as concerned about the proportion. If you are using acrylic paint, especially the dollar store paints, the Walmart paints, they're a high percentage of water, and water and resin do not mix. So you want to be careful to limit the amount you use. Alcohol inks are no problem. Mica powder isn't as much of a problem, but be careful with the paints that you don't get too much water and the balance is out of whack. Glitters, go crazy. You can put all the glitter you want in resin and it's not going to affect your ratio. That's fine. And then additives. Have fun. Play with additives to give your project interest. I use pebbles. I use seashells. I use chips. These are seashell chips. Glitter. The acrylic diamonds that are so popular right now. The geodes. All of those give your project interest. I also use little film cutouts of sea life. If you have a Cricut machine, you can print. These are, come here. These are the little manta war that you can cut out. I use turtles and sharks and whales and all kinds of things. But if you have a Cricut machine, you can cut those things out also, and they're always fun to add into your project. So if you want to pour a second layer or add, you can wait about 5 hours generally, and then pour a second layer if that's what you want to do. I pour a tremendous amount of charcuterie boards in all sizes. These are what I call my baby sharks, and it always makes the song trigger in my head. But I go back over these with a top coat of clear resin, which will meet the industry standard for food safety. So I'll give this about 5 hours to set, and then I will go back and put a clear coat over it. As long as it has no additives, then you're good to go. Yeah, those are fun. Be sure and do the food safe over anything you're going to use as food, and that's serving trays, wood boards. I get the big rectangle trays and do those. And I think that might cover everything that I wanted to go over this morning. So I hope this was helpful. Be sure and leave any comments you want, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Have fun, stay safe, and share with me what you've created. I'd love to see what you're doing. All right, thanks. Have a great day.